Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Thank you for joining this GP Strategies webinar, where we'll explore best practices and innovative insights to help you and your organization improve performance.
I would like to introduce you to our presenters today. They are subject matter experts for GP Strategies on delivery resource management, and it's my pleasure to introduce them to you today. Megan Bridget is a senior director. She supports all our global training programs. Megan recruits and hires project managers, facilitators, and instructional designers to meet clients' needs. Megan also manages the instructional scheduling, tracks certification of programs, and ensures that instructors keep up to date on client information. And we have Fran Colavita. She's a senior manager. She works closely with GP Strategies worldwide hubs and ensures that they have all the right resources with the right skill sets, language, background, and location. Fran's team coordinates all the aspects of delivery resource management, including vetting, onboarding, facilitator producer readiness, and a quality assurance process to deliver virtual training on various platforms. Welcome, Fran and Megan. And we have a great session planned for you today. And I'm going to let you take it from here.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim. All right. So hello everyone, and I'm happy to be with all of you today. Megan and I work on the delivery resource management team at GP Strategies. The Delivery Resource Management team is a centralized global hub to source all virtual and in-person facilitators, coaches, producers, and moderator needs in various topics and modalities. This team has built training and certification programs for effective virtual facilitation and producer skills, including a digital badge. Delivery topics that our facilitators deliver are leadership, engagement, diversity, equity, and inclusion, executive presence, career, digital innovation, as well as many others. Currently, the GP Strategies Associate Network contains over 1,000 resources globally. So let's get started with a poll. So how many different virtual communication and collaboration tools does your organization use? And Kim will open the poll. Thanks, Kim. When working with organizations, we are seeing large quantities of virtual communication and collaboration tools. Even when looking on the internet, there are articles out there titled "The Top 15 Collaboration Tools of 2021." Your organization needs this tool. Depending on the needs, it could be anything, any tools like Outlook, DRAWBACKS, Mural, Zoom, Yammer, Slack, Google, everything. It can be overwhelming at times with the number of different tools and features. How did you all answer?
Okay, there's a couple people, so if we give it another second or two.
Okay, yeah, we have A 1 to 3, B 4 to 5, C 6 to 7, and D more than 7.
Okay, closing it now, give it a...
Sure. Okay, we have a little bit all over the map here. We have some from 1 to 3, 4 to 5. Yeah, it looks like 1 to 3 and 4 to 5. All right, great. Thank you. You know, as we discussed, the virtual work world has introduced new collaboration and communication tools. And with those tools, there are a number of new features and functions available, and this is changing all the time. Many organizations have been leveraging different tools to address the needs of a virtual environment. And for many companies, Microsoft Teams has closely tried to replace what we have accomplished face-to-face, which includes chit-chat and water cooler talk. It also has the capability to decrease or eliminate some of those other collaboration or communication tools because of its robust functionality. Today, we're going to focus on ways we can use Microsoft Teams effectively to collaborate and communicate. This could be when you're facilitating a training session, leading a meeting, or executing day-to-day work. We will review some of the common pitfalls and challenges, as well as best practices while using Teams. So before we dive in, we want to get your thoughts. Teams has a wide variety of features and tools. Most organizations have used some functions more frequently than others. What Teams functionality does your organization commonly use to communicate and collaborate? Let us know in the chat. Okay. All right, meetings. Yep, sharing documents, short and longer meetings, IM and Teams meetings, instant messaging. Great answers. Yep, chat, meetings, files, Teams, breakouts. Yep. Teams recently, now has that breakout functionality. File functions, record function breakouts. You guys all seem like you're pros and whiteboards. So that's great. All great answers. And yep, and many of the answers you put in the chat. Today, we're going to focus on the most commonly used features such as instant message, team sites, channels, and meeting functions. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Megan to kick us off with instant message.
Great. Thank you so much, Fran. And, we're going to dive in here to instant messaging. A lot of you are mentioning that in the chat panel here. And, as we all know, instant messaging, it's not really a new technology. It's been around for quite a while. But with more and more people working in a remote setting than ever before, really the amount of usage of instant messaging has been increasing dramatically. And there certainly are a lot of benefits that organizations are seeing. Instant message really has helped companies become more efficient, allowing for convenient, quick, easy, real-time communication. And this function has really helped to decrease the need for meetings and phone calls. And it's helped individuals provide greater customer experience by getting real-time answers, as well as even engaging with their customers through instant message or chat. And all of these benefits have really equated to some cost savings for many organizations. And instant message, it can be one of the greatest tools at your disposal to quickly interact, communicate, collaborate. However, if not used properly, it can be a nightmare. So today we're going to dive into some of the features, but also some of the do's and don'ts so that you can avoid that nightmare. So we wanted to start with a quick poll. We've all heard that sound, that ping, that noise that it makes when we get that instant message. And I wanted to get us a quick, pulse check here. How many instant messages do you think you receive every day on Microsoft Teams or maybe a platform that your organization uses? So in your poll, you'll see, is it 5 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, 21 or more? And I know many of us maybe haven't even stopped to think about it. So best estimate is perfect. And the reason I bring this up is that while instant messaging can be really convenient and a time saver, it can sometimes create some distraction and cause individuals to lose productivity. So I wanted to get your take. They've actually been doing some studies on this. So I want to see kind of where we all compare to what these researchers have seen. All right, Kim, and how are we doing?
We're doing pretty good. I'm just going to give it another second for people to finish, filling out their answers. I mean, some days it's a short, right? And sometimes you get a billion.
Exactly.
Things.
Holiday approaching, we might get a lot less, but sometimes it's a lot more depending upon what's going on.
Okay. I'm closing it now.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. And I did see in the Q&A too, even some people that receive less than 5, which that's exciting too. So yeah, it even have less than 5.
All right. Everybody.
All right, so it looks like the majority is feeling around, 11 to 15 and some handful of that are in the 5 to 10 or 21 or more. And, again, this is best estimate. I didn't really, think about how many chats I was getting per day or instant messages. And studies have actually shown that a lot of people underestimate how many they're actually receiving, and that people actually receive close to 40 messages a day. So if you think about it, all the back and forth, it can really add up and again be, potentially a distraction depending upon how you're managing it. And that leads us into some of those common pitfalls. And again, instant messaging, not new, but we want to talk about, pitfalls to avoid so that you can use it to its, maximize its effectiveness. So first, the failure to take a hint. If you're sending a message to someone and they don't respond, it's important to maybe take a hint. Maybe they're away, maybe they're heads down, maybe they're actually in a meeting, but they're appearing as available. And when this happens, it can become rather distracting if you keep continuing to ping them. So maybe, consider using an alternative method like email or give them a phone call, or perhaps revisit them at a later time. And this also, is important to think about during after hours as well. Also, just like with email, similar rules apply when you're debating if it's a group chat or an individual message. Be mindful of who you're instant messaging and take things offline with that individual when appropriate versus bogging down the whole group with chats. Also, be careful of who you're sending instant messages to. I've seen this happen, many times where we think we're sending something to the right person, but it actually ends up going to the wrong person. Or even the wrong group, which could be embarrassing or distracting to others. And it's important to remember, just like with chat, or just like with email, chats are permanent. I always remember the old adage when email came out first, don't send any emails that you would not want plastered on New York City, Times Square for all to see. So chats are permanent. You have to take that time and be considerate of what you're sending. Right, as well as too, another important aspect is, making sure to be mindful of your status. Are you available in case anybody needs to reach out? Or are you heads down on a project and need some quiet, uninterrupted time? So it's really crucial to make sure that you're managing your status. And also, as the person sending the instant message, it's important to review if somebody is available, what their status is before going and sending that instant message. You want to make sure to use your judgment on how important or urgent a topic is, and then decide what approach works best. Is it best to interrupt them when they're maybe listed as busy, or is it better to revisit it at a later time? And then one etiquette tip that I'm famous for using, because I think it's really important, is always ask first if somebody is available to instant message before sending the message you want to send. So, start your ping with asking if they are available, because just because someone's listed as available or busy doesn't mean they have the opportunity to instant message at that time. So asking that person first is polite approach versus kind of launching into that question or comment that you may have. So with this, I'm going to turn things back over to Fran to share more about the Teams and Channels function.
Thanks, Megan. I know that I've definitely chatted to the wrong person, and I'm very aware right now, so definitely a good tip. Teams and Channels. Yep, another benefit to Teams is the ability to create teams and channels. So what are channels in Teams? In Teams, teamwork and communication happen in channels. A channel is a single place for a team to share messages, tools, and files. Channels can be organized by group, project, feature, or whatever else is relevant to you. This is helpful with large files. Some organizations use channels to save documents that they need to frequently access, such as job aids or commonly used files, and it works like a library or file folder for individuals to quickly access. Additionally, this also helps organizations to have the ability to manage documents real time, allowing for that cross collaboration amongst individuals and groups. And there is the ability to post discussions or chat within a team or channel to collaborate and communicate. That chatting feature, I think, is, most helpful. I use it quite often with our Intact teams. However, there can be some challenges to using teams and channels effectively. Many of us share that they are included in way too many teams or channels. I always think of Oprah and her saying, you get a team and you get a team, everyone gets a team. One way to avoid this is to only create a new team when it makes sense. Stop to review if there's an existing team or channel that might suit your needs and objectives. If it exists, reach out to that group to see if it would make sense to use this team instead of creating a new one. Also, notifications can go wild. Depending on how you set up your notifications, this can become just as distracting as the many IMs you receive each day. It is important that when you're involved in a team or channel that you think about the goal and objective and the level of notification you would like to receive. As we said, a nice feature is sharing documents, especially with one another and allowing for real-time updating and editing. However, this can also cause too many cooks to be in the kitchen. Make sure that you and your team have a version control governance in place before making any changes. So these are just some functionality tips. To personalize your notifications, you can click on the 3 dots or the ellipsis next to your profile picture to access account settings. From here, you can access the settings and click on notifications. It can be the sound or pop-ups or changing how often you get them. So you can make those type of changes. For permissions, open Teams, go to settings and app permissions and select the app for which you need to choose the settings and select your desired settings. And also you can hide channels or unhide them. We might have a list of, different teams. And so you can go to, that team in your navigation list and click on the ellipsis next to the team, or if already hidden, to hide them. But if they are already hidden, if you scroll down to the bottom, you can tap the hidden channels list to make them appear again. And when you join a team, it's automatically shown in your teams list. You don't have to do anything for that. So now, we'll just go back to Megan so she can talk about meeting.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Fran. And lastly, we wanted to review one of the most commonly used tools and features, which is hosting a meeting or hosting a training. And many of you mentioned that that's a tool that you're commonly using. And also some of you had chatted in earlier about some of the different features, but just giving it some food for thought here. What are some of the features your organization is using the most during maybe meetings that you're hosting or trainings that you're facilitating using Microsoft Teams? What are some of those features you're using the most? All right, and go ahead, you can send a chat. I'm seeing some coming through. So screen share, yep, we're gonna dive into that. Awesome, all right, breakout rooms, chat, right, using a whiteboard, yeah. And the great thing about Teams is that, there are these different functionalities. And one of the pieces to really keep in mind too is that Microsoft Teams, they make enhancements to their tool and different features that are, being released, on a quarterly basis. So always important to kind of see what's new, what's out there. Microsoft Teams has a wonderful library available of different job aids to help you walk through all of these. But wonderful. I'm seeing a lot of great items here. Hands raised. That's wonderful. All right, breakout rooms, Q&A. Great. Well, and definitely, there are those variety of tools for instructor-led trainings or meetings. And with those tools, it can really help your participants to stay engaged throughout, either your meeting or your training session. And when developing your meeting agenda or your training content, it's really important to be mindful on how you're going to successfully include these tools to help you execute on activities or on messaging or content. And also, if you're interested in learning more about how to use these various interactive tools, kind of step-by-step instructions, Fran had shared earlier, we actually have a training and certification program on producer skills or effective virtual facilitation, so you can learn more about that. And I'm also including for you a link to our website that actually provides some information on virtual learning that does give some best practices on how you can use a variety of those different tools, from those polls, breakouts, whiteboards, emoticons, giving you some of those best practices, because we could probably spend an entire 2 hours going through step by step how to use these. But the important thing is that you know that they're available, you practice them, and gaining that experience as well. I know a couple of you mentioned too about sharing your content, and there's important things to keep in mind to share your content effectively. So it's important to understand the limitations and features with each of the different methods on how to share your content. So for instance, one of the first options is you can select share screen or screen. This is going to allow you to share your entire desktop with the audience. It's going to allow the audience to be able to view what you're viewing at the same time. This can be great when you want to review maybe an application or multiple documents. However, one critical piece is being mindful, though, that they can see, so your participants can see everything. So if you move from sharing a document or application to perhaps sharing your email or calendar, they're going to see all of it. So just important to keep in mind. Another option is that you can share your window. This allows you to select the document or window that you would specifically like to share. This is a really great approach when maybe you're only reviewing one document or one application. But be mindful, if you need to move from thing to thing, so from document to document or document to application, those won't be visible to your audience. So just, again, making sure to be mindful. And also, if you're specifically sharing a PowerPoint document, the best way to show this is through selecting the PowerPoint Live and then selecting the specific PowerPoint you wish to share. This is going to help you to not only share the PowerPoint, but allow the participant panel and chat panel to appear as well. This is the best approach to use when doing a virtual instructor-led training. And we captured a little bit of screenshots here for you as well. All right, wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for joining our session today, and we hope that you walked away with a better understanding of how you can effectively use some of the various tools and features. It's important to remember ways to avoid some of those common pitfalls, making sure to be conscientious, be intentional that we talked about, being mindful. And as we reviewed, there are many benefits your organization can recognize with using and leveraging these different tools effectively. And effectiveness is that key word there. Also, it's important to explore and practice these capabilities. So if this is something that you're new to and haven't had as much experience with, maybe do a dry run or practice with a trusted colleague that can give you some feedback. That way you're making sure to kind of practice what you preach there. All right, and with that, we're going to go ahead and open up the floor for some Q&A. All right, so that way, in case you have any questions, you can go ahead and you can put them either in the Q&A section or send them into the chat panel. All right.
And just a reminder to everyone, first of all, thank you, Megan and Fran, for your presentation. It was very informative, and I definitely learned a thing or two. But I also want to remind everyone that we will be sending out a recording of this presentation as well as a copy of the presentation. You should receive that within the next 24 to 48 hours.
Great, thank you. Paula asks, is there a way to enter an event or meeting in the Teams calendar and not have it send a calendar invite to everyone on the team? So, yeah, do you want to answer that, Megan?
Yeah, so sending a invitation through your teams, but making sure not sending it everyone to that team.
Yep.
Yeah, similar to Outlook, if you're going to use your team's calendar, you can select who you would like to be in attendance. If you're inviting, say the majority of a team, but omitting a few team members, it might be helpful to enter it in, maybe individually versus entering it in and sending an invitation to the entire team. That way you can make sure who, you're specifically inviting versus defaulting to the entire team. Great question.
Okay. We have how to use the whiteboard. It's very different from other whiteboards. Is there a best practice? Thanks, Michelle. I know, Megan, you were just showing how to share as you are sharing content or you're sharing your session window or just a document, you can share a whiteboard as well.
Yeah, so going back over here to our screen share, or I grab some screenshots, that way you can have them, at your fingertips. You're going back after we send out the meeting slides. But yeah, absolutely. So right down here, we've got our Microsoft whiteboard where you can collaborate, you can invite certain individuals. I always recommend too, as a best practice when getting started before your meeting, to pull up your whiteboard and get that started. I always notice that it does take some time to load and to get set up. So I always recommend as a best practice to arrive a little bit early to your meeting or to your training, getting that set up, getting your content pulled up, also allowing for the annotation capability, and also to make it easy on participants. Always want to give them some instructions and how to, even with a maybe a light exercise to get them started. That way they get familiar with it before you launch into the actual activity. So here you can go through sharing your content and again, selecting the Microsoft whiteboard, and that'll allow you to pull that up and be able to collaborate.
Yeah, it's always best practices, always to sign on early and make sure, even though, we trust technology is going to work, we know it can happen. So just to make sure, as we said, all privileges are assigned and annotation is working. The hosts and co-hosts are assigned properly. And of course, if you have any content whiteboards or polls, that those are done prior as well.
Mm-hmm.
Megan and Fran, there's a few questions in the Q&A section that we can just take the last minute to kind of answer. So one of them is, when using the PowerPoint Live, does it matter if you're in slideshow mode or not?
Great. So usually when you're doing the PowerPoint Live, it'll allow you a couple of different options where you can be either in this mode here where you're going to see at the bottom where you have your slideshow and you can go along with your slides in advance, or it can make it bigger and you can go ahead and advance your slides and you're only going to share and see that one slide at a time. So whatever your preference is, the nice thing about Microsoft Teams is that it has that ability to either just view that singular slide and know what's coming next, or you can get that little sneak preview here at the bottom. So it's whatever you're going to be most comfortable and prefer. As well as too, you can turn off the ability for individuals to advance themselves, because one of the things with Teams is that they can actually progress through the slides without you and not keep on track. So you can actually limit that as well with this little eyeball that's up here towards the presenting section. And that way you can kind of limit that too. So that way they can't go too far in advance. Great question.
Thanks. Okay, and one more. I'm not sure if we covered this, but do you use the planner and productivity tools in Teams to manage the workflow, etc.?
Do we use the planner and productivity tools in Teams to manage the workflow? We haven't dived into that too much, but Fran, I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that one.
Well, I know we've used the notes where you can actually take notes real time. I think there's even the where you have audio where you can turn that on, and it, for the speaker notes, it will actually script, your session as well. So I have used that before, and that the note section is good as well, I think.
Okay, great. So we covered a lot. There are still some questions and we can answer them and send that out in the follow-up, but I want to be conscious of everyone's time. We covered a lot and we encourage you to continue the conversation with our presenter beyond today's presentation, and we do have that contact information for you as well. And I'd like to thank Fran and Megan for joining and presenting and providing us with a lot of information today. And to everyone on this webinar today, I thank you for taking the time to join us as well.
This webinar is brought to you by GP Strategies. Together we can create a world where business excellence makes possibilities achievable. You can access more webinars or download additional resources at gpstrategies.com/resource-library.